Alex sat at the corner of the bar, quietly nursing his drink as the low hum of conversations surrounded him. He had been stationed on the neutral space station for weeks now, doing routine maintenance on the ship docks. The station itself was a lifeline in the deep stretches of space, where various factions could meet and trade without fear of starting a war. It wasn't much of a place for excitement, and that's just how Alex liked it. He glanced at the clock above the bar. The evening was winding down, and most of the station's inhabitants had retreated to their quarters or the workstations. A quiet night was exactly what he needed. But all that changed when the doors of the bar swung open with a force that made everyone stop and look. A figure stood in the doorway, taller than any human Alex had ever seen. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her presence commanded attention the moment she entered. The room went silent. Every eye turned to her. There was no mistaking it. This was no ordinary visitor. She was an alien queen. She wore a crown, though not a traditional one. It was a halo of light, shifting colors like a living thing. Her eyes glowed a deep violet, staring down at the room with an intensity that made even the bravest men shrink. Alex froze. He had seen alien diplomats and traders on the station before, but none like her. She stepped forward, her gaze scanning the crowd, and then, without warning, her eyes locked onto Alex. His heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure what it was, her eyes, the weight of her presence, or something else entirely. But he felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if she could see right through him. The crowd parted like the ocean before her, making room as she walked toward Alex's table. He instinctively stood, unsure of what to do. He was just a maintenance worker, far from important in any of the political matters of the galaxy. Why was she coming to him? Her voice, when it came, was calm and commanding, cutting through the stillness of the room. "My daughter needs your help." Alex blinked, stunned. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what she had just said. Help? What could she possibly want from him? He was just a regular guy, a mechanic with no skills in diplomacy or combat. He tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. The Queen's gaze never left him. She spoke again, more urgently this time. "I need you to come with me. There is no one else who can do this." Alex stood frozen. I don't understand," he stammered. "Why me? I'm nobody." The Queen tilted her head slightly, as if contemplating his words. "It is precisely because you are nobody that you are needed," she said. "You have no ties to anyone here. You are a free agent, unbound by the politics that hold us all." Alex swallowed, trying to gather his thoughts. This was insane. He had no place in whatever she was talking about. But there was something in her eyes, something that told him she wasn't asking. She was commanding. I don't know if I can help," Alex said, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. "You can," the Queen said firmly. "The fate of my daughter rests on your actions. I am not giving you a choice, human." There was something about the way she said that, almost too final, as if she had already seen the outcome. Alex wasn't sure if he felt more terrified or more curious. He had never been involved in anything like this before. His life had been simple, unremarkable. Fixing ships, doing maintenance, never anything more than that. Now he was standing before an alien queen being asked to save her daughter. The Queen extended a hand to him, her fingers delicate and elegant despite her overwhelming presence. "Come," she said. "Time is of the essence." Alex stared at her hand for a moment. His mind was still spinning, but something inside him urged him to follow her. Maybe it was the Queen's commanding presence, or maybe it was the strange feeling that something big was about to happen. Either way, he found himself nodding slowly, unsure of what exactly he was agreeing to. "All right," he muttered. "I'll help, but what exactly am I supposed to do?" The Queen smiled, her expression almost softening for a moment. "You will come with me to rescue my daughter. You will be her protector, her guide. There are those who would use her for their own gain, and it is up to you to ensure that does not happen." Alex felt a weight settle on his shoulders. A protector. He was a mechanic, not a bodyguard. But as the Queen turned to leave, she shot one last glance over her shoulder. "You will find everything you need aboard my ship. There is no time to waste." With that, she walked out of the bar and Alex followed, still trying to process everything. He barely had time to grab his jacket before he was being led through the hallways of the station toward a ship unlike any he had ever seen. It was sleek, almost alive with its curves and shining surfaces. The ship seemed to hum with energy, as though it was waiting for something or someone. Alex felt a rush of anticipation and dread as they boarded. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he was about to find out. As the ship's engines roared to life and they shot off into the unknown depths of space, Alex could only stare out the window, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion. What had he just gotten himself into? And what kind of danger awaited him on the other side? Alex sat in the command seat of the sleek, alien ship, his hands clenched tightly around the armrests as the stars outside blurred into streaks of light. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It had smooth, metallic walls that seemed to pulse with a soft, blue glow. The ship itself seemed alive, as though it responded to the movements of its passengers. It felt too advanced, too alien, but there was no turning back now. The Queen sat across from him, her presence as imposing as ever. Despite her regal appearance, there was a sense of urgency in her eyes. She was no longer the aloof figure he had seen in the bar. Now she was focused, determined, as if she carried the weight of the entire galaxy on her shoulders. "You still don't understand, do you?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had no idea what was going on. One moment he was minding his own business on a space station, and the next he was aboard a royal ship, hurtling through space on a mission to save the Queen's daughter. It all seemed surreal. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," Alex admitted. "You've said your daughter needs my help, but why me? Why not someone else?" The Queen regarded him silently for a moment, her violet eyes locking with his. "Because you are human," she said simply. "You are not bound by the politics of my world, nor are you part of any faction that could complicate matters. You are an outsider, which makes you the perfect person for this task." Alex furrowed his brow, still struggling to understand. "But I'm just a mechanic. I don't even know anything about your world, or your people. I'm not trained for something like this." The Queen smiled, though it wasn't the soft, comforting smile Alex might have expected. It was more of a knowing, calculating smile. "That is why you are needed. Your ignorance is your strength. You won't be weighed down by alliances or expectations. You will act with the clarity that others cannot." Alex wasn't sure if he was supposed to feel reassured or more nervous. But before he could say anything more, the ship systems hummed with a sudden shift, and a voice crackled through the speakers. "Approaching destination, Your Majesty," the voice said, robotic yet polite. The Queen stood gracefully, her long silver robes flowing behind her. "Prepare yourself, Alex. We are about to land on the planet where my daughter is being held." The ship began to slow, and Alex could feel the change in the air around him, as if the entire ship was preparing for something significant. His stomach tightened in anticipation. He had no idea what he was about to walk into. Minutes later, the ship touched down on a barren, rocky planet. The atmosphere outside was thick with dust, and the sky was a dark, ominous shade of red. Alex could feel the weight of the planet pressing down on him, as though it was holding its breath. This was not the peaceful, neutral space station he had been used to. This was a place where danger lurked in every shadow. The Queen turned to him. "This is the planet where my daughter is held captive. It is controlled by a rival faction, a powerful military group that wants to overthrow me. They are ruthless, and they will stop at nothing to get what they want." Alex swallowed hard. He could feel the tension building in his chest. He had never imagined he would be walking into something like this. He had been on enough missions as a mechanic to know that not everything went according to plan. And when you mixed politics and power with war, things often went terribly wrong. "We will approach from the west," the Queen continued, her voice unwavering. "There is a hidden facility there, a place where they are keeping her. My daughter is not just a prisoner, she is a symbol. They believe that if they control her, they can control me." Alex glanced out the window, seeing the rough terrain stretching out before them. The landscape was desolate, a wasteland of jagged rocks and barren ground. He could see the faint outline of a structure in the distance, a dark silhouette against the red sky. "How do you know she's still there?" Alex asked, his voice uncertain. "Because she is the only one who can lead them to me," the Queen replied, her tone cold. "They know the key to destroying my rule lies in her, and she knows it too." Alex didn't know what to say. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a diplomat. He was just a guy who fixed things. And now, somehow, he had been thrust into the middle of a political battle that could change the fate of an entire empire. The ship's door opened with a hiss, and Alex followed the Queen out into the dust-choked air. His feet crunched on the rocky ground as they made their way toward the facility. A few members of the Queen's elite guard accompanied them, moving swiftly and silently, their weapons hidden but ready. As they approached the building, Alex's heart began to race. This was it. This was what he had signed up for, even if he didn't fully understand why. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he had no choice now. He had to go through with this, for better or for worse. They reached the entrance, a large metal door that seemed almost too plain for something as important as the Queen's daughter. The Queen stepped forward, her hands raised as if to command the door to open. It responded to her, sliding open with a low groan. Inside, the facility was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of old machinery and dust. The walls were lined with high-tech equipment, but everything looked worn, as if it had been abandoned long ago. Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. This place felt wrong. "We have to be careful," the Queen whispered. "There are eyes everywhere. The moment we step inside, they will know we are here." Alex nodded, glancing around at the dark corners of the room. He had no idea what they were up against, but the sense of danger was palpable. Every shadow seemed to hide something, and every sound seemed amplified in the silence. As they moved deeper into the facility, the Queen turned to Alex. "Remember, you are here for one reason only, to get my daughter out safely. Nothing else matters." "Understood," Alex replied, though he wasn't sure what he could do in the face of whatever awaited them inside. They moved cautiously through the hallways, the sounds of their footsteps echoing in the eerie quiet. As they rounded a corner, Alex's eyes caught a glimpse of something, a figure standing in the shadows. His heart skipped a beat. Was it one of the enemy? But before he could react, the figure stepped forward into the light. It was a woman, no, a girl, her appearance almost otherworldly. She had silver hair like the Queen's, though it was darker, and her eyes glowed with the same intense violet hue. She looked at Alex with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. "Are you the one they sent?" she asked, her voice low but clear. "The human." Alex stared at her, unsure of what to say. This was the Queen's daughter, the person he was supposed to protect. But there was something unsettling about her, something that made him hesitate. "I am," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I'm here to help you." She eyed him carefully, then nodded. "Then we don't have much time. Follow me." Without another word, she turned and started walking down the corridor, her steps confident and swift. Alex exchanged a glance with the Queen before following her. They were about to enter the heart of enemy territory, and Alex had no idea what lay ahead. Alex followed the Queen's daughter down the dimly lit corridor, his heart pounding in his chest. The air around him felt thick with tension. He had been in tight situations before. Being a mechanic on a space station meant dealing with tricky repairs and the occasional malfunctioning system, but nothing like this. The Queen's daughter, who seemed so confident and sure of herself, moved through the darkened hallways like she belonged here, her steps quick and purposeful. Alex, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong. This was no place for someone like him. He was just a mechanic. He fixed things. He didn't deal with politics or power struggles between alien factions. But here he was, walking through an enemy facility, tasked with protecting the Queen's daughter, who, as far as he understood, might have her own agenda. "Why are they holding you here?" Alex asked, his voice low, though he wasn't sure why he felt the need to whisper. "What do they want with you?" The Queen's daughter glanced back at him, her violet eyes glowing in the low light. "They want me to sign an agreement. They want me to declare allegiance to their cause, to join them in overthrowing my mother." Alex's stomach tightened. "But why would you agree to that?" She gave a bitter laugh, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Because it's my only chance of surviving. If I don't agree, they'll kill me. I've seen what they've done to others who have crossed them." Alex couldn't imagine the kind of pressure she was under, but he also couldn't shake the suspicion that there was more to this than she was letting on. The Queen's daughter had said she was being held captive, but she moved through the facility with such confidence, as if she knew exactly where she was going. It made him wonder, was she truly a prisoner, or had she somehow made her own deal with the enemy? "I don't understand," Alex said, his voice filled with confusion. "You're the heir to the throne. Why would you risk your life to join them? You could be the Queen." Her expression softened for a brief moment. "I don't want to be queen," she said quietly. "I never asked for this. All I ever wanted was freedom, but my mother, she's not the ruler the galaxy needs. I've seen too much, heard too many things. She's weak, Alex. I'm not sure I can stand beside her anymore." Alex didn't know what to say to that. He had only just met the Queen, and he wasn't in a position to judge her leadership. But he knew one thing for sure. He didn't like the idea of being caught in the middle of a royal struggle. They reached a large, open chamber, and the Queen's daughter stopped in front of a door that looked far more secure than anything they had passed before. It was made of thick, reinforced metal, and there were no windows, no way to see what was inside. "This is where they're keeping me," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But it's not just me anymore. They've taken others, innocent people who are being forced to work for them. They're using them to build weapons, to strengthen their army. They're trying to create an unstoppable force." Alex looked at the door, feeling the weight of the situation bearing down on him. "And what do you want me to do?" She turned to him, her face serious. "I need you to help me break out. I've been planning this for a while now. I know where the control room is, and I have access to the codes that will shut down the security systems. But I can't do it alone. I need someone like you, someone who can think on their feet, someone who isn't afraid to act when things get dangerous." Alex swallowed, his mind racing. He had never been involved in anything like this before. He was just a guy who fixed ships, who made sure things ran smoothly. He wasn't a soldier, and he definitely wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. But the Queen's daughter was looking at him with such intensity, her eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and determination. He couldn't let her down. "All right," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves in his stomach. "I'll help you." Her lips curled into a small, thankful smile. "Thank you. You don't know what this means." The Queen's daughter stepped forward and began typing a series of commands into a console beside the door. It beeped in response, the lights flashing green for a moment before the door slid open with a soft hiss. The inside was far more advanced than anything Alex had ever seen before. The room was filled with high-tech equipment, screens displaying data in alien languages he couldn't understand. The air was sterile, almost too clean, and the hum of machinery was constant, filling the space with an unsettling, mechanical rhythm. "This is where they keep their most important prisoners," the Queen's daughter explained, her voice low as she scanned the room. "But it's also where they keep their weapons. We need to disable the system here before we can escape." Alex nodded, his mind racing. He was out of his depth here, but he couldn't turn back now. He wasn't sure how he would help, but he had to do something. As they moved deeper into the room, Alex noticed a small group of people locked in cages at the far side. They looked tired, their clothes ragged, and their faces hollow from weeks, maybe months of captivity. Alex's heart twisted in his chest. These were people who had been forced to work for the enemy, and if they didn't act fast, more would suffer the same fate. "We need to get them out of here," Alex said urgently, turning to the Queen's daughter. "If they're going to help us, we can't leave them behind." The Queen's daughter hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. We need all the help we can get." Together, they made their way toward the cages, moving quietly through the room. As they reached the first cage, Alex knelt down, trying to figure out how to unlock it. The lock was advanced, but it wasn't beyond his abilities. He had worked on enough complex systems to know how to break into them. "You'll have to be quick," the Queen's daughter said, her voice tight with urgency. "They'll realize we're here soon." Alex nodded, focusing on the lock. His hands were steady as he worked, his mind shutting out the noise around him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he heard the satisfying click of the lock releasing. The door to the cage swung open, and the first prisoner stumbled out. She was a woman, her face gaunt and pale, but there was a spark of gratitude in her eyes. She didn't say anything, just nodded and stepped aside to allow the others to follow. One by one, Alex unlocked the cages, freeing the prisoners. They were all too weak to move quickly, but they followed him and the Queen's daughter toward the exit. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing louder with each passing second. Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the facility, their shrill sound cutting through the silence. The Queen's daughter cursed under her breath. "They know we're here," she said. "We don't have much time." Alex felt the weight of the situation settle over him. There was no turning back now, they had to move fast. "Follow me," he said, his voice firm. "We'll make it out, I promise." But as they turned to leave, a voice called out from behind them. "Stop right there." Alex turned, his heart skipping a beat. A group of guards stood at the far end of the hallway, weapons raised. They had been waiting for this moment. "Looks like we've got company," Alex muttered under his breath. The Queen's daughter stepped forward, her expression cold. "Run," she ordered. And without another word, the group sprinted down the corridor, the sound of heavy footsteps and blaring alarms chasing them. Alex's heart raced in his chest, but he didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. They had a long way to go, and the odds were stacked against them. But for the first time since he had been thrust into this mess, Alex felt like he might actually be able to help. He wasn't just fixing things anymore. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. And he was ready to face whatever came next. Alex's heart raced as he sprinted down the narrow corridor, the sound of pounding footsteps and clanging metal echoing behind him. The alarms continued to blare, a shrill reminder of the urgency of the situation. The Queen's daughter, her face set with determination, ran ahead of him, leading the way through the maze of hallways. Behind them, the prisoners, weak and disoriented but determined to escape, followed as best they could. "Keep moving," Alex shouted over his shoulder. "We need to get to the control room." The Queen's daughter didn't need any encouragement. Her stride never faltered, even though she was clearly exhausted from the ordeal. She had spent days, maybe even weeks, locked in this facility, but now she seemed more alive than ever, her determination pushing her forward. Alex felt the weight of the responsibility settle over him. He had never signed up for this. He was just a mechanic, someone who fixed things. Yet here he was, running for his life, helping a royal daughter escape from an enemy facility with the fate of a galaxy hanging in the balance. He had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was certain: they had to get out. Ahead of them, the hallways began to widen, and Alex could see the flickering lights of the control room in the distance. They were close, but as they rounded a corner, they ran directly into a group of armed guards. "Stop!" one of the guards shouted, raising his weapon. Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed the nearest object, a metal pipe lying on the floor, and swung it at the guard's head, knocking him to the ground. The other guards hesitated for only a moment, but that was enough. The Queen's daughter and the prisoners rushed past them, while Alex grabbed a stun gun from one of the fallen guards. He fired it at the remaining soldiers, the electricity from the weapon crackling through the air as it hit its target. The guards collapsed to the ground, unconscious. "Nice shot," the Queen's daughter said, turning back to give him a brief smile before continuing her sprint toward the control room. "Thanks," Alex replied, feeling his pulse pounding in his ears. "But we're not out of this yet." They reached the control room's door, and the Queen's daughter quickly typed a series of codes into the keypad beside it. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a small, dimly lit room filled with high-tech equipment. At the center of the room was a large console, its screens displaying the layout of the facility and various security systems. "This is it," the Queen's daughter said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We shut down the security systems here and we'll have a clear path to the exit." Alex nodded, scanning the room. "What do we need to do?" "Just follow my lead," she said, stepping up to the console. Her fingers flew across the controls and the screens flickered as she accessed the system. Alex watched as she typed in commands, her face intense with concentration. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the speakers overhead. "Unauthorized access detected. Security breach imminent. All personnel report to the control room immediately." The Queen's daughter cursed under her breath. "They know we're here." Alex's eyes widened. "We need to hurry." "Give me a second," she replied, her voice tight. "I've almost got it." Just as she hit a final key, the lights in the room flickered and then went out. For a moment, everything was plunged into darkness. Alex's breath caught in his throat. Then the emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie red glow over the room. The Queen's daughter turned to him, her expression grim. "They're coming," she said, her voice low. "We have to go, now." They didn't waste another second. The Queen's daughter grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him toward the exit. The group of prisoners followed closely behind, their faces filled with a mix of fear and hope. They had made it this far, but the hard part was still ahead of them. As they rushed down the hallway, Alex could hear the sound of running footsteps echoing behind them. The enemy had been alerted and now they were all in pursuit. "Keep moving," Alex shouted. "We're almost there." They rounded another corner and found themselves in front of a massive metal door. It was the final obstacle between them and freedom. The Queen's daughter quickly typed in another code and the door slowly creaked open. Beyond it was a large hangar where a shuttle waited for them. "Get to the shuttle," the Queen's daughter ordered, her voice sharp with urgency. They rushed inside, and Alex quickly took his seat in the cockpit. The Queen's daughter sat beside him, her hands already moving over the controls. The prisoners took their seats in the back, looking as though they couldn't quite believe they were about to escape. "Hang on," the Queen's daughter shouted, and with a sudden jolt, the shuttle lifted off the ground, shooting out of the hangar and into the open sky. Alex felt the familiar rush of acceleration as they soared into the atmosphere, leaving the enemy facility behind. But they weren't out of danger yet. The enemy would be in pursuit, and they still had to navigate through the treacherous space surrounding the planet. The Queen's daughter worked quickly, adjusting the shuttle's trajectory as they neared the edge of the atmosphere. Alex kept his eyes on the instruments, his hands ready to assist if needed. "We're not safe yet," the Queen's daughter said, her voice steady despite the tension. "They'll send ships after us." Alex nodded, his mind racing. He had no experience with piloting a shuttle, but he had worked on enough ships to know the basics. He could follow her instructions. "Can you make it to the neutral station?" Alex asked, his voice tight with concern. "It's the closest place." The Queen's daughter nodded. "We'll make it, but we need to get past their defenses first." Just as she finished speaking, a loud alarm blared through the shuttle's cabin. Alex glanced over at the monitors and saw several enemy ships closing in on them. "Here they come," the Queen's daughter said, her voice grim. "Get ready." Alex's pulse raced as he looked out the window. The enemy ships were gaining on them, their weapons charging. They were about to be in range. The Queen's daughter didn't hesitate. She engaged the shuttle's engines, sending them into a sharp dive. The shuttle banked left, then right, dodging the enemy fire as it streaked through the stars. Alex held on, his grip tight on the seat as the shuttle twisted and turned, weaving through the incoming attacks. "Hold on," the Queen's daughter shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're going to make it." Alex could barely hear her over the roar of the engines and the blaring alarms. The shuttle jolted again as another enemy blast grazed the hull. "Almost there," the Queen's daughter shouted. "Just a little more." They were getting closer to the neutral station, but the enemy was relentless. They couldn't let up now. Alex kept his eyes focused on the instruments, watching as they neared the station's orbit. With one final maneuver, the Queen's daughter dove toward the station, just narrowly avoiding another barrage of enemy fire. They shot through the station's outer defense perimeter, and Alex exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The shuttle broke through the atmosphere and into the safe zone of the station, where the enemy ships couldn't follow. "We're safe," the Queen's daughter said, her voice quiet with relief. Alex slumped back in his seat, his body still vibrating with adrenaline. He couldn't believe they had made it. They were safe for now.